In December 1996, Sebastian Bach checked his answering machine and heard a message that would change his life forever. After leaving an expletive-filled tirade on guitarist Dave Snake Sabo's voicemail over a potential Kiss tour, the Skid Row frontman was fired from the band he'd helped build into a 20-million album-selling powerhouse. Just 5 years earlier, Skid Row had made history when their album Slave to the Grind became the first heavy metal album to debut at #1 on the Billboard charts. Now Bach would have to watch as his former bandmates turned down reunion offers worth hundreds of thousands of dollars while he rebuilt his career through Broadway, reality TV, and solo albums, only to see much of what he'd built literally wash away in a devastating natural disaster. Before Skid Row became one of rock's biggest acts, they were just another local band trying to make it in New Jersey. Their fortunes changed dramatically when John Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora took notice of the group. In an era when top metal frontmen commanded base salaries between $100,000 and $500,000 annually, plus tour bonuses of $1,000 to $5,000 per show, Bach and his bandmates face a different reality. The seeds of discontent had been planted years earlier when the band signed with Underground Music Company, waiving their publishing rights to Bon Jovi and Sambora. While standard splits typically gave songwriters 50 to 100% of rights, Bach and his bandmates had given away millions in potential earnings. This festering resentment over lost revenue would ultimately contribute to their breaking point. In January 1989, Skid Row released their self-titled debut album. Under typical record deals of the era, bands earned 10 to 15% of wholesale album prices split among members. The record was an immediate success, eventually selling nearly 6 million copies worldwide. Singles like 18 and Life and I Remember You cracked the Billboard Top 10, while Youth Gone Wild became an anthem for rebellious teens across America. Their videos dominated MTV's rotation, turning Bach into one of rock's most recognizable frontmen. The band's sophomore album, Slave to the Grind, proved even more successful, making history as the first heavy metal album to debut at #1 on the Billboard charts. But behind the scenes, the seeds of destruction were already being planted. Though Richie Sambora eventually returned his share of the publishing rights to the band, tensions remained high. By 1995, their third album, Subhuman Race, showed signs of trouble. The record peaked at just number 35 on the Billboard charts, selling only a fraction of their previous releases. The rise of grunge had changed the musical landscape, and bands like Skid Row found themselves struggling to adapt. Internal tensions grew as album sales declined, setting the stage for the explosive confrontation that would end Bach's time with the band. By late 1996, Skid Row had reached a crossroads. After 3 albums and world tours, the relationship between Bach and his bandmates had deteriorated significantly. While comparable metal bands of their era had earned tour guarantees between $25,000 to $75,000 per show at their peak, Skid Row's declining album sales were affecting their ability to command top dollar. The timing couldn't have been worse. Grunge had transformed the musical landscape, with Nirvana and Pearl Jam packing arenas while metal bands struggled to fill clubs. What had once been a powerful draw, Skid Row's polished metal sound and image, had become a liability in this new era. This industry-wide shift put additional pressure on a band already dealing with internal tensions. The final breaking point came when Kiss approached Bach about Skid Row opening for their highly anticipated reunion tour. For Bach, it seemed like the perfect opportunity to reinvigorate the band's declining fortunes, but his bandmates saw things differently. Without consulting the rest of Skid Row, Bach accepted the Kiss tour offer. When his bandmates discovered what he'd done, they were furious. The band had already committed to other plans, and Bach's unilateral decision only amplified existing tensions. In a moment of anger, Bach left an expletive-laden message on guitarist Dave Snake Sabo's answering machine. It would prove to be the last straw. Snake and bassist Rachel Bolan had grown tired of Bach's behavior. Beyond the Kiss tour incident, there were deeper issues at play. Drug use had become a sore point within the band, and Bach's public incidents had cost him daily. Years earlier, a bottle-throwing incident had resulted in a 6-figure settlement, with Bach paying half and his bandmates covering the rest. With insurance companies demanding higher risk premiums due to such incidents, even successful shows barely covered their mounting expenses. The band's response came swiftly. In December 1996, Bach received a message that ended his tenure with Skid Row. After selling 20 million albums worldwide, Records that with standard royalty rates of 10 to 15% of wholesale prices should have generated millions in revenue. Bach was out of the group he'd helped build into a metal powerhouse. The split was more than just the end of a successful band. It marked the beginning of a bitter divide that would last decades. While other bands from their era eventually reunited, Skid Row's members remained firmly opposed to working with Bach again. Snake would later describe the prospect of reuniting with Bach as toxic, citing quality-of-life issues that no amount of money could resolve. For Bach, it meant walking away from a catalog that would later generate substantial streaming revenue, with songs like 18 and Life consistently earning digital performance royalties through platforms like Spotify and Apple Music. After leaving Skid Row, Bach faced a daunting challenge of reinventing himself in an industry that had already moved on from the 80s metal scene. His 1999 debut solo album Bring 'Em Bach Alive sold just 6,979 copies in the US, a stark contrast to the multi-platinum success he'd known with Skid Row. Rather than fade away, Bach began exploring opportunities beyond the hard rock world. His 2000 pivot to Broadway proved surprisingly lucrative. While standard Broadway performers earned base salaries of $1,500 to $1,800 weekly during this period, stars could command higher rates plus performance bonuses, typically $2,600 for completing long runs. Bach's success in the lead role of Jekyll and Hyde led to an extended run through October. He followed this with roles in the Rocky Horror Show in 2001, and by 2002 he was starring in Jesus Christ Superstar's national touring production, with each production offering standard 6-month to 1-year contracts. Despite finding success on stage, Bach couldn't escape financial reality. His reality TV appearances became crucial income sources, with shows typically paying established musicians between $10,000 to $50,000 per episode. "I don't do celebrity rap superstar because I want to be a celebrity rap superstar," he later admitted. "I do that so I can pay my mortgage." His reality TV career included stints on Celebrity Rap Superstar in 2007, where he placed third, Gone Country, which he won in 2008, and a recurring role on Gilmore Girls. Adding to Bach's frustration, Skid Row began receiving lucrative reunion offers. Each rejection reinforced the growing divide between Bach and his former bandmates, setting the stage for years of failed attempt to reunite the classic lineup. Bach kept pushing forward with solo material, adapting his approach with each release. While his 2007 album Angel Down sold over 6,000 copies and 2011's Kicking and Screaming peaked at number 73 on the Billboard chart, the metrics of success had changed. As the industry shifted towards streaming, Bach learned to measure victory differently. He began focusing on building a dedicated fan base rather than chasing platinum records, touring consistently to support each release. This strategy proved prescient as streaming platforms opened new revenue possibilities, providing another steady income stream. Meanwhile, his former bandmates consistently turned down lucrative reunion offers. One proposal would have paid the band $500,000 for just 2 shows. At a time when comparable 80s metal acts were earning $25,000 to $775,000 per night on the nostalgia circuit, the refusal was telling. Despite the potential payday, Snake Sabo maintained that it's never been about the money for Skid Row. The band's refusal to reunite with Bach, even for substantial sums, suggested the wounds from their split ran deeper than anyone had realized. In August 20th, 2011, Bach's career trajectory took an unexpected turn when Hurricane Irene slammed into New Jersey. The storm's floodwaters ravaged his Lincroft home, knocking it off its foundation and destroying decades of irreplaceable memorabilia. Among the casualties were Kiss gargoyles from their 1979 tour, a Kiss pinball machine, and countless boxes of one-of-a-kind Skid Row memorabilia, including master tapes of both audio and video recordings. The financial impact was devastating. The house Bach had owned for over 25 years had to be condemned. When he initially tried to sell the property in 2012, Bach asked $669,000, but the severe structural damage from the flooding forced him to continually lower the price. By 2016, he finally sold the property for just $272,500, approximately $85,000 less than what he'd paid for it decades earlier. The loss extended beyond just property value. The destruction of his memorabilia collection represented the physical erasure of much of Bach's musical history. While he would later work to rebuild his record collection, many of the lost items were truly irreplaceable. The disaster forced Bach to relocate and essentially start over, both personally and professionally,